Morning. It's Wednesday, May 31st, 2017. We're here for our weekly Board of Commissioners. We're in the Senator Hearing Room, Courthouse Square, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. And we start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think I forgot to mention the time to be perfect, but one clock said 12:20, so I'm pretty sure that isn't it
Just,
already.
you have to pretend like the big hand is the little hand and the little hand is the big hand, and then you're
Fine.
right.
We're way late, apparently. So, first item is always public comment. We have one person signed up, David Beam. I saw yes. Do you want to come up and talk to us about small businesses in the county?
Welcome, Mayor. A lot of disability people work in Marion County. They don't want no more taxes for small businesses for them, because a lot of them can't read and write. A lot of them are good workers in this Marion County, and I think we need to do better for the ones that really need it, for special needs population in Marion County. You got some of them are on the waiting list in Marion County, can't work because they don't have any skills in there. So I'm asking Marion County Commissioners, would you talk to the governor or Secretary of State or something if we can get better system there for disability people in Marion County? And that's all I'm asking for the county commissioners. Will you work on that for the governor and both House and Senate? Get it done for special needs population, because there's a lot of them going to be cut in this year programs. So I'd like to keep it going this year. I'm working on it both sides and get it done. I'd like to keep it here for Marion County, for the special needs population for Marion County, and urge all the businesses pitch in and help. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you for your advocacy. You do a great job.
Thank you.
David, it's good to see you here. The last couple of times I've seen you over in the halls of the Capitol doing your
Yes,
job.
I
Yeah.
am an advisor to the governor and the mayor of the Salem area. So Mayor asked me to be on the advisor to him, and Kate Brown asked me to be advisor to her, all the services in the state. So I'm the advisor to her, all the services in the county and the state. So I'm working with Kate Brown full time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We do have, go ahead.
I move really quick
Yeah.
before you steal it from me.
No, it is like the shortest consent calendar. We might as well just made it an action item. But anyway, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, it's an honor and a pleasure to make a motion to move the consent calendar today. Under the treasurer, approve the distribution of the Oregon State Forestry timber revenue as per ORS Chapter 530.
You won't add anything? That's
Unless you want something else special.
it? All right, fine. Is there,
I'll second the motion.
all right, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the one item on our consent calendar this morning. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Nicely done.
It did something.
All right, we do have some action items, 3, 4. First is under business services, we consider approval of a 10-year lease of office and clinic space at 2045 Silverton Road for Health Department to operate alcohol and drug treatment, intensive treatment recovery programs. Larry Tilford, Ryan Matthews, so whoever,
We got Carrie Muller.
and Carrie. Wonderful. Good morning. As soon as you're ready, go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Commissioners. Larry Tilford, Facilities Program Manager for the county, and I'm here with Director Muller from the Health. We're here to ask your support for a long-term lease of a facility on Silverton Road that will replace the Davcor properties that we're leasing currently. It's been almost a year in the making. We've looked at well over 14 properties, commercial properties in the area. One of the constraints and the most challenging piece of the puzzle has been that we could not select a piece of property that was within 1,000 feet of a daycare center or a school, and that has limited us in many ways. Several times we've identified a location and started down the road in the process and discovered that there was a daycare center that wasn't clearly identified as being within that proximity. So it's been a process. It's been a long time working this all together, but we've identified the old DHS property on Silverton Road as being an ideal location, we believe. And the owner and the agent have worked with us on developing some tentative improvements that we think will fit the program well. And Director Mueller hopefully will speak to the program so you can understand their needs.
Good morning. The Drug and Alcohol Services Program that currently is located at the DAVCOR site is a combination of our outpatient intensive treatment services for adults and also our medication-assisted treatment program. The medication-assisted treatment program we refer to as MAT is a CARF-accredited program and provides medication treatment for people struggling with opiate addiction, both prescription and heroin drug addiction. Part of those services and the medication to provide supports is a highly controlled substance, and it's what has required us to get this 1,000-foot barrier around schools and daycare facilities. Besides exceeding the capacity that we have in that building, we anticipate an increase in services to folks with medication-assisted treatment needs as the community struggles with dealing with the opiate addiction problem, and we're seeing an increase in referrals and expansion of that service. So we're at capacity already. With the expansion of the services, we're well beyond capacity. And then the buildings have the additional barrier of being in a floodplain zone, and more than 5 times probably in the last 8 years we've had to use our emergency preparedness plans and evacuate that building. So we've been looking for some time now for a program that is out of the floodplain and would suit our program needs better. So we've been fortunate to work with Larry on this. As he said, it's been quite a process to find a building that meets our needs. So we're excited about this possibility and look for your support.
Can we answer any questions about the agreement or about the property?
Well, thank you, both. And just remind me, so how large is the alcohol and drug treatment program? Does it fill the whole building? Are there plans in the future to maybe consolidate other programs in the building?
Yeah, that's a good question. Currently, we have 2 sites in the DAVCOR area, and we have several interests. Reintegrating the entire program into one building, and then it is a large building, much larger than our current needs, and we have interest in the future of integrating other services into one building. We have, at last count, I thought well over 24 sites that our services are out of, so my interest is to bring them back into one location. The other thing is our current DAVCOR location is outside of the bus route, and so we are providing shuttle services to individuals who are coming to and from services from very early in the morning until later in the evening. This is directly on the bus route and with a stop right out in front of the building, so we're also very pleased about that.
Great. And the building is vacant right now, right?
It is.
So,
It is.
so we'll just this program will take up a portion of it, and then you'll continue to look as leases are up or as
That's
opportunities arise. Okay, great. Thank you.
Just, I might be wrong, but it looks like, it says 3,524 feet in ours, in the write-up. That can't be right, is it?
That's
No, I
office
think
space.
we're anticipating leasing 17,710.
Okay, I just couldn't put together how it could be that small, answer your needs and be so expensive, but I was looking at the drawing, I couldn't really tell. Any other questions?
No, I've read through it. It's just pretty basic lease. You're not moving until January? Is that what I'm reading?
We expect the
Tenant
TIs to be
improvements.
done by January, right?
All right, then a motion to approve.
So, Mr. Chair, I would move approval of a 10-year lease for office and clinic space at 2045 Silverton Road for the Health Department to operate alcohol and drug treatment and intensive treatment recovery programs.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the lease at 2045 Silverton Road for alcohol and drug treatment. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. and
Thank you.
Good luck. Next is an item under health. Consider approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Health and Sciences University for $128,500 to provide Title V block grant for public health nurse home visit program through September 30th, 2017. Judy Cleve, good to see you again. Hello.
Thank you. Well, it's been quite a while since I've been here, so bear with me if I struggle a little bit. This is a transition year for the Oregon Center for Children and Youth with Special Health Care Needs. They are the Title V recipient for this population in our state and receive money from the Oregon Health Authority. We've contracted with them for many years, and this particular agreement used to be called the Cocoon Agreement. This year, the Ocean has been tasked with restructuring their program, and I think that's my phone making noise, so I apologize. They've been tasked with restructuring how they deliver the services in the state. And what they have been tasked with doing is choosing national priorities that they need to address. And so whereas in the past our total focus was on delivering nurse case management to our population here through the Cocoon program, Cocoon is only a portion of what we're doing with the new grant dollars. And so there's a focus on doing shared plans of care where we bring many partners to the table and work with all of the partners to develop a shared plan of care. And there is that sense at the national level that this will actually assist people in a better way than it has in the past. So there actually are three focus areas for national goals that our particular state has chosen, and those are a medical home for this population, transition to adult health care services, which is really a huge focus at the national level, and culturally and linguistically appropriate services. So this agreement has been worked on for quite a long time. It was sent to us, then it was retracted because Ocean realized that they had left the Promotora piece out. So finally, we're coming to the table with this. We've been delivering the services the entire year knowing that it was coming, and I'm seeking approval for the agreement.
All right. Questions or comments?
Well, I guess my only comment would be that these services are really critical services for families, and some of these children have significant health needs, very fragile, and so I'm glad that we're doing the service, and I'm glad that we're reaching the agreement that we need to make sure that we can continue doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve an intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Health and Science University for $128,500 to provide Title V block grant for public health nurse home visit program through September 30th, 2017.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agreement with Oregon Health Sciences for public health nurse home visit program. Any further discussion? Just one for the record. This isn't very close, but I'm thinking my granddaughter may receive these services, so I kind of want to acknowledge that, but nothing precludes me from being able to vote on it. All right. We'll call a question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Let me find where we are. There. Next item is also under health. We consider approval of a contract for services with Michael Wolf, MD, doing business as Wolf Psychiatric Consulting Services, LLC, for $360,000 to provide medical director services to the behavioral health program. Scott Richards, good morning, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Scott Richards with the Health Department. A significant challenge facing mental health centers in Marion County, and actually in many counties in Oregon right now, is having an adequate number of psychiatrists and nurse practitioners to meet the needs, mental health needs of our clients. So we typically patch together a handful of often part-time nurse practitioners and psychiatrists in both our adult and children's program. In addition to direct services and prescribing medications and seeing the individuals that we serve, we need someone to take a leadership role both in terms of policies and procedures and practices for the health department, but also to provide some clinical consultation and oversight to the nurse practitioners that work in our programs. Dr. Wolf has done that for the last 3 years for the health department, but he actually has provided direct services through our early psychosis program, I'm guessing for at least 15 years for the health department. So we are fortunate to have him. It's been challenging to get a lot of his time into his medical director role, but we just recently hired somebody a day a week to provide a little relief to his work in the ESA program to free him up to take in, put even more hours within his existing contract to seeing people in the ESA program. So I think it's critical to our mission to utilize his services and provide the medical oversight to the health department that we need.
Okay.
I just note for the record, the contract's 3-year contract, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't have any questions. Pretty straightforward. You ready for a motion?
I am.
All right, so I would move that the board approve a contract for services with Michael Wolf, MD, doing business as Wolf Psychiatric Consulting Services, LLC, for $360,000 to provide medical director services to the behavioral health programs.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded then to approve this contract with Michael Wolf to provide medical director service and behavioral health programs. Any further discussion? Hear none, all in favor then say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Scott. And our last item, fourth item today, is under Public Works. We consider appeal of a hearings officer's decision affirming the planning director's decision revoking the operating plan for comprehensive plan case ZC CP 09001 Phillips Family Limited Partnership LLC. Joe Fenimore, Alan Haley, Scott Norris, you're all there, so looks like you're ready to go. Joe, go ahead.
All right. For the record, Joe Fenimore.
Scott Norris. Alan Haley, Public Works Director.
This item before you today is to consider the appeal of the hearings officer's decision that affirmed the planning director's decision that revoked the operating plan for Raccoon Rock that was approved by comprehensive plan case 09-001. Under that approval, conditions required the applicant to perform certain road improvements before beginning operations. In lieu of immediate construction, the applicant could enter into an agreement with the county to phase in the improvements over a 5-year period. That agreement was signed in August 2011 and required the improvements to be completed in 5 years. On November 10, 2016, the planning director issued a letter revoking the operating plan for failure of the applicant to satisfy the roadway improvement conditions. That revocation was appealed to the hearings officer, who conducted public hearings on February 22nd and March 8th. And on April 25th, the hearings officer issued a decision affirming the planning director's decision. That hearings officer's decision was appealed to the board on May 10th. In the appeal, the appellant argues that the road improvement conditions were based on an anticipated production of 130 truck and trailer loads of gravel per day, while the actual production averaged only 6 trucks per day. And based on low production numbers, a complete review of the transportation conditions of approval is warranted. The appellant proposes that the revocation proceedings be placed on hold to allow them to file a new application for modification of the transportation conditions of approval. If the revocation is stayed and the quarry is allowed to operate while the application is being considered, they propose to deposit $200,000 in an escrow account to be used towards the cost of transportation improvements imposed in the modified proceedings, and will agree to a daily cap trip on the number of trucks per day. The appellant states they believe the quarry should be allowed to resume operation while a new application is being considered because it will generate information that could be used for the modified application on the actual truck traffic, and that the quarry would generate funds that could then be used for improvements required by any modified application. The appellant also identifies 4 technical issues they believe needs to be addressed in the appeal. They believe there's a lack of clarity in whether the revocation applies to just the operating permit or also to the listing as a significant site, that the hearings officer erred in shifting the burden of proof from the county to the appellant, that the volume of traffic is de minimis because under Goal 12, a site that generates less than 400 truck trips per day is considered to comply with the Oregon Transportation Rule and the Oregon Highway Plan. And finally, that there's a lack of evidence in the record because a pavement report that was prepared by Multitech Engineering was not provided to the hearings officer and is not part of the record. In summary, the appellant feels that the conditions were onerous based on the actual amount of traffic generated. Since this revocation process cannot be used to modify conditions, a separate application is needed, and the revocation should be stayed and the quarry allowed to operate while that application is being processed. The board has the following options: accept the appeal and schedule a public hearing with a suggested hearing date of June 28, 2017. Accept the appeal and remand the matter back to the hearings officer. Accept the appeal and take no action while a new conditional use application is being processed, and allow the quarry to operate in the interim by not taking enforcement action. Accept the appeal and take no action while a new conditional use application is being processed, and do not allow the quarry to operate in the interim. Deny the appeal and accept the hearings officer's decision as its own, or take no action at this time. Since this is a revocation action, the conditions cannot be modified unless a separate application is filed. So under the first 2 options in option 6, the final decision would be delayed and the matter would be returned to the board at a later date. If the board chose option 3, 4, or 5, the applicant would need to file a conditional use application to either request a modification of the existing conditions or brand new conditional use permit. However, with option 3, the quarry would be allowed to operate while the conditional use application is being processed. Staff recommends option 3 to accept the appeal and take no action while a new conditional use application is being processed, and allow the quarry to operate in the interim by not taking enforcement action. And we will be happy to try and answer any questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a number of questions, and so if you'll bear with me. First of all, I want to put on the record that I'm fully aware that the nature of today's discussion is to determine whether or not we're going to accept the appeal. We're not here to try the case or whatever, but I just need to kind of understand the scope of what has happened up to this point to make that decision, okay? So my first question is, and I took this home last night and read it, so on November 29th, Planning Director Joe Fenimore issued a letter, and it says in here, the conditions required, among other things, several improvements to be made to surrounding roadways. Joe, when you put that in the letter, among other things, did that mean that the only thing that the applicant had not done in the conditions was the roadway issues, or were there other things that were in Exhibit B that were conditions of the original approval that had not been completed at the time that you wrote this letter?
I believe they were all in that one section, condition 8, or 8 or G, I can't remember the number. They were
Okay, so let me go
G,
down.
excuse me. G.
So let me just, I saved my management update materials from January 23rd, 2017, and this is prior to the time when the appeal was filed. And if we want to make this available to council or whatever, I'm looking at Gloria to make sure that we're not outside of land use proceedings. But we have number 7, applicant is responsible to preserve and protect the current integrity of the adjacent county roadway ditch other public facilities from any damage that the applicant's activities would have the potential to cause, and then it goes on, and that says ongoing. So the staff had listed next to each of these the status. Under number 13, it says the subject property is within the unincorporated area of Marion County. Transportation system development charges will be assessed. At that time, it said not assessed. Have we assessed system development charges since that time? Just asking.
No.
All right. Number 15, and this has L, outdoor lighting shall be on only during permitted hours of operation except for lighting required for safety near buildings and equipment parking areas. Outdoor lighting shall be shielded so it does not illuminate any adjacent property or public right-of-way. At that time, it said not confirmed. Has that been confirmed?
It has not.
P says access roads to the aggregate site shall be gated and locked when not in operation, and it says not done. Has that been done since that time?
Not to my knowledge.
Q says the front-end loader must operate in the zone identified as the FEL allowed operating area on Figure 5 of the noise study unless extraction occurs in a manner that creates a barrier. I won't read the rest of it. Must continually meet DEQ, U.S. Bureau of Mines noise standards during the mining operation. It says not confirmed. Has that been confirmed?
That has not.
The applicant shall maintain, this is R, a dust mitigation plan during any extraction-related activities on the site. It says, is there a written plan? No. Has a written plan been submitted since that
It
time?
has not.
Okay, I'm on S. The mining operation shall follow the guidelines established in the general blasting plan provided in the file. Seismic monitoring shall take place during blasting events by vibration, monitoring seismographs and seismically sensitive receivers to measure ground vibration, etc. Not confirmed. Has that been confirmed?
It has
since
not.
that time? T, the mining operation shall provide seismic monitoring of each blasting event at the nearest structure, and so on. Talks about blasting reports filed every 6 months during the first week of January, first week of July if blasting occurs. Have those reports been submitted?
Not to my knowledge.
And U, the applicant shall obtain all necessary state or federal air and water quality permits to operate in continual compliance with these permits and state and federal regulations. It says not confirmed. Have those been confirmed?
They have not.
And then the last one, W, the rest of these I'm not reading because it says they were confirmed. The blasting company hired by the mining operator shall design the layout and sequencing of charges to meet 98 dBc, whatever that stands for, slow response for noise levels. It says not confirmed.
That is correct.
All right, so my view about, among other things, when I saw this letter, is that we've got a list, I can't count how many things I just read, but more than a handful of things, in addition to the roadway issues that were not completed as part of the exhibit, the conditions of approval that this board made when this was originally cited and allowed to operate. And so my question, I have a couple of questions. Number one, why are we just focusing on the roadway issues? And number two, if we do what the staff is recommending here and the hearings officer, and that is that we allow them to submit another application, what happens to all these other things?
First of all, I believe that the reason a lot of those were not added into the letter is because they were based when the quarry is operating. So if it's not operating, there is no blasting, there is no front-end loader noise. There is that was the reason that nothing was confirmed after the letter was sent out. That's the only explanation I have for that. As far as what happens to these conditions, that would depend on what they ask to modify and what the decision would be on that.
So let me just tell you, it makes me wary to follow a recommendation that says that they can continue operating when we have nothing in place on these conditions and nothing in the pipeline that tells me what's going to happen to those conditions when we allow another application to come forward. So I'll turn it over to my fellow commissioners, but I'll tell you, I'm pretty wound up about this one, and the other part that I'll just put on the record, that the line that I read, the hearings officer report, page 8, where it says on December 13th, the applicant appealed and stated 4 reasons, and reason number 3 is that the family partnership was coerced into agreeing to the conditions demanded by the county because of the amount of time and money that had already been expended when the county required agreement to those conditions. Makes me wonder whether or not the applicant really ever took the conditions seriously and whether or not they, in good faith, are even anticipating to follow them. So
That also makes me question whether or not we would want to follow the staff recommendation to allow them to operate during a time period. So I'll just throw that out there. Next.
Well, you took a whole bunch of it, but I want to correct, because I want to look into it. Number 5, which is where I'm leaning. But I want nothing that revokes or takes off the table the conditions already placed. If they ever go back into business, they'll meet these conditions, or I'm not going to look at it. That's all there is to it. So why did you say that new conditions would be made, or does it? Because I don't want that to be part of it.
They would have to file a new application, a separate application from this one. So they would have to come in and file a conditional use for a new operating plan and make their argument at that time.
I'm not.
That would be the process.
No. I want to deny the appeal, affirm the revocation, so I don't want anything to go away that's already in the record or already planned. So which one makes that for me?
Commissioner, option 5 allows the board to deny the appeal, accept the hearings officer's decision affirming the revocation. The appellant in this case could, at a future date, file for a new conditional use permit, making their argument at that time for the conditions that they deem reasonable. But it would then be up to the process to determine what the conditions would be for any conditional use permit.
So let me
that would
just say
be
for the,
granted
excuse
through
me,
that
thank
process.
you, that's what I thought, but for the record, those conditions won't change as for long as I'm here, and you can do something about that if that's your issue, but no. We were told we had to do this, and the only thing we could limit was hours of operation, blasting, a number of things the Commissioner went through. To my knowledge, maybe none of them were ever met. Business went on and demanded some accountability, got nothing. I don't know where I can go. Let me just make sure. So I don't want anything that changes anything that we have. In fact, I might get more. Oh, we in good faith, just so you know, we in good faith let them operate while they were doing these things, had it set up that way, and still get no credit for that, and nothing was done. I won't say too much more. I'm going to be in support of number 5, and again, those conditions with me won't change. In fact, if we look at it again, I'm not going to say that, but you can figure it. Anything else?
Well, yeah, I do have a few questions. Let me go back here. Was there other notices sent to the applicant before your cease and desist, basically, letter, Joe, about compliance from anybody in Public Works?
Yes, Commissioner. Alan Haley, Public Works Director. I had sent them, I believe, 2 letters asking them to give us a plan for compliance with the conditions that were going to be expiring in, I believe, October of 2015? 16, yeah. 16.
Yeah, so we have those letters someplace, and and you can prove receipt of those letters?
Absolutely.
Okay. Does the appellant, when they sign a conditional use permit, was there anything in there that talked about changing conditions based on the amount of traffic changing?
That was not in the conditions of approval, no.
Okay. Was there a number in the original conditional use permit on the amount of trucks per day? Is there a traffic study or anything that said this is how many trucks they estimate?
I would have to double check that. I don't know where the 130 number came from. I don't know if that was, my memory was that they were basically said, what is the most you will ever do? And that was the number.
That was their number.
And that was their number.
That wasn't our number.
If I can interrupt, their engineer helped derive that number in our write-up anyway.
Right, so it wasn't our number that we put in there.
That's my
It
understanding.
was the business that was saying, this is our business plan out of here. Okay. And then the difference between number 4 and number 5. Number 4, basically, if you accept the appeal but it shuts down the operation until a new conditional use permit is, this is on options for consideration. Number 4, accepts the appeal but shuts down the operation. Am I right? Until a new conditional use permit can be issued?
Correct.
Okay, number 5, you deny the appeal, and then they go back and still apply for a new conditional use permit. So what's the difference?
You would have to hold a hearing on the appeal. If you accept the appeal under number 4, then you have to actually hold an appeal hearing on the current permit revocation. And under option 5, you are affirming the denial of the revocation, and it's up to them if they choose to file a conditional use permit.
So I appreciate that clarification, Gloria, but number 4 says, accept the appeal and take no action while a new conditional use application is being processed. Effectively staying the appeal and do not allow the quarry to operate in the interim. So number 4 says we're gonna have a public hearing on the appeal, but we're really not gonna accept that because they have to go back after a conditional use permit. It's the same as number 5 in reality. They're gonna have to go back and get a new conditional use permit. That's what we're saying.
Essentially, if they filed a new conditional use permit, it's going to moot out the need for appeal on the revocation. So it's kind of combining two different processes at the same time. But under both 4 and 5, you're not allowing them to operate.
Okay, got it.
So can I ask one clarifying question?
Certainly.
All right, so if we deny the appeal and they submit a new conditional use application, that goes to the planning director first, right? And then the planning director decides whether they want to do it, then the neighbors would come in and, I mean, do we go through the whole thing all over again? How does that work?
The planning director has the option of sending it straight to the hearings officer, which would probably be under the situation, that was what the planning director would do.
Okay, so planning director is not planning to try to make a sole judgment on this new
We would
application?
send it straight to the hearings officer and let the hearings officer conduct the initial public hearing.
All right. And then how do these conditions get reconnected? You know, the discussion we just had, and Commissioner Brentano, it sounds like he's on the same page. If the new application is filed, does the hearings officer look back, or is it a completely new, kind of de novo consideration, and so this gets disconnected?
The new conditional use application is a separate proceeding, but there's nothing that would prevent the imposition of the same conditions of approval from the original case in the new conditional use application.
But who would impose those conditions? Would the hearings officer impose those conditions? Would the department bring the conditions forward as recommended conditions for the hearings officer? And the other thing is that there were other conditions in here that were met, but you know, if they, I didn't carefully read them, but if they all went away and we started over, then what would happen? So I'm asking this line of questioning because I'm wondering what the distinction is if we accept the appeal. Does the work happen then to try to just modify a portion of this in here and everything else kind of stays in place, I guess? So if you did the new application, all of a sudden you have a separate action and then you're taking it on faith, but all these other things will somehow get reconnected up. If you accept the appeal and then you modify the roadway piece of it, but would you continue to be operating under the prior conditions and then everything kind of stays in place except you're modifying down the roadway piece of it? So
Yeah, if I understand.
do you see what I'm getting at? All right.
I think I do. If I understand correctly, if the board were to accept the appeal, the existing conditions are still there. If a new conditional use permit conditional use application is filed, then the process for determining what the conditions applicable in the new permit would start anew with recommendations coming from the department and from others, and the hearings officer ultimately concluding what conditions should apply. But if the appeal is accepted, those conditions remain in place with the idea that the appeal is essentially held in abeyance pending the outcome of the new conditional use permit application.
So really what I'm exploring here, Scott, is number 2. So say you accepted the appeal and you gave direction to the hearings officer to reconsider, I'm looking at Gloria too, because maybe you can help with this, to reconsider the portion of the road improvements based on the actual amount of business that's being done, and the idea of the $200,000 in escrow and modifying that portion of it. If we were to do that, it sounds like we're still operating under the current conditions, so all those other conditions would remain in place. And we could likely ask them not to operate while that's going on, right? We can't tell them not to submit a new application during that time, or, I mean, that's their right to do if they want to do, so that could be going forward, but meanwhile, they'd be maybe working on 2 tracks. This may not be where I'm going, I'm just kind of throwing out the what ifs here. And then I had another part of it. Oh, can you, in your remand, also ask the hearings officer to broaden and look at whether or not the other conditions have actually been met? Ask the applicant to bring in evidence of whether or not the ones that aren't confirmed have been met, the ones that I just read on the record, and if not, to put into the plan the requirements that those be met, and how that's going to happen.
Under number 2, the hearings officer could not modify or expand the conditions that were imposed in the original case.
So only the board can do that?
Only a new application for a new conditional use permit could do that.
Okay.
And you can file a conditional use permit just to modify existing conditions.
I did not understand that at all, Joe. Do it again.
So they could file a new conditional use for a whole operating plan different from what they're doing now, or they could file a conditional use application to modify existing conditions. There is an application process for that.
Okay. So what is their plan to do? Do you know what their intent is?
I don't know what the intent is. I assume it was to modify conditions, but I don't know that.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is that if we wanted to work with them on modifying the roadway plan, the only way that we can do it is to have them file a new application.
That is correct.
We can't go backwards and modify something.
Not in this process that we're in
Okay.
now.
And so we're not looking at remanding or whatever. So I guess I'll just put on the record that if and when that new application comes in, how do we make sure, again, how do we make sure that then, you're saying that the department would put these conditions forward? Because if you send it directly to the hearings officer, how do we reconnect all these other conditions?
It would be a new conditional use application, which would go through the process for a conditional use application where the staff would provide recommended conditions, and ultimately the hearings officer would determine which.
So let me just ask Scott, let me ask Joe, would the staff continue to recommend these other conditions on the seismic and the dust mitigation plan and the blasting and all of the other?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there's one key one, and I don't even want to give the impression that at least I would be interested in modifying the impacts to the roads, because it's still a capacity issue. I don't care that they only ran 2 trucks or the economy wasn't good. This is what their capacity is, and this is what the potential damage is. This is what they agreed to. That's what I'll agree to. So don't just assume that any new conditions would be a lessening. Gloria?
So just to kind of to summarize, this is a revocation proceeding, so it's revocation of the current permit for not meeting the current conditions. Joe Fenimore's talked about 2 different conditional use applications, one where they would modify the existing conditions, file an application to modify the existing conditions, in which case they would have to take the entire list of existing conditions and apply, say, which ones they would like to modify. An entirely new conditional use permit for a new operation. What you would do then is you would look at the plan for the new operation, and you'd have to tie the conditions to that operation. We've heard that a lot of these conditions would again be recommended, but then you would also have to look at whether or not the conditions are appropriate to that new application. So there are some slight differences between the two. One, you're taking the existing list, modifying it, and the other one, it's going to be a new list that might incorporate some or all of the items that are on that.
Let's go another. I don't want anything that rewards them for non-compliance, and it sounds like we're setting that up. Are there other ways we, Gloria, sorry this sounds like it is, but can sue for non-compliance and force it for work already not done? Is that where we should be going?
Well, right now you have before you the revocation of the current permit, and like say any other subsequent process would have to go through the regular land use process. They could always appeal this if the board chose option 5, denying the appeal, accepting the hearings officer's decision to affirm the revocation. The applicant, of course, has other options. They could appeal to LUBA, or they could go back and they could file one of the new 2 applications. But, you know, that basically is going to shut down, and you're going to be looking at either some other process further on. We'd have to discuss if there's other things in terms of...
Well, I know that the Public Works has put money into the roadways. We've spent money on this. Can we at least recover those damages because of this non-compliance?
We can discuss that, probably, those options, and the board does have the ability, I think, to do that, but we might want to discuss those options later on, not in the public hearing on the revocation.
And stop me if I'm getting so far. I don't want to be disqualified from any further discussions, because my attitude, I'm pretty sure it's coming out. I mean, on a future hearing, so stop me if I get that close. Alan, you had a question or comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This case is one that has spurred our planning and development efforts to actually put the initialing and date recording that Carlson was talking about on all future cases, that we will in fact track each condition that is put on any applicant for a land use case, including our land use development permits. So in part, that's why staff recommended option 3, which was actually, we have nothing to go out and confirm. One, if they were operating, we could actually then go back out and check to make sure that the conditions that are there are in fact being met. 2, they would in fact be earning money towards the idea of being able to make the road improvements that I still want them to make, and know those conditions would not change in a subsequent application. And 3, to answer, I think, another question you just had, is there is an agreement with the county, a contract, a 5-year deal to make those road improvements that was subsequent to the land use issue. So the land use requirements were that these road improvements be made, and there was a separate agreement that was made to allow those conditions to be spread over a 5-year period, and that contract has not been met.
Yes, Commissioner?
So we got into a contract issue there. I just want to, think of this. This is probably the second time that, since I've been here in 3 years, where this situation where we've helped people get to a yes, and I really appreciate that. But they have not, in my opinion, met their obligations to support that yes. And I guess I want to get to a point where, Alan, you just said if you let them continue to operate versus, and I'm a restaurant guy, and I've opened many restaurants in my life, and I can't open them. I can't get my permit until somebody comes out and inspects all the things I'm supposed to have in place, and that my plan's ready to go, and I've got all this stuff done, the training's been done, whatever it is, the safety issues. Then I get a green light. And then 30 days later, somebody's coming back and checking on me to make sure I'm still doing the right thing or whatever those are. So I'm hesitant, very hesitant to say we're going to let you continue to operate, and that somewhere in our culture at Public Works, we're now going to go out there and do an inspection that would say, okay, you're on it. I would rather see us say, here's the conditions you need to meet. You're shut down until you meet these conditions, and not all of them. If you've got a 5-year contract, whatever, but we've got, some of those things that are in there are part of just a written plan that we're asking for, that should be submitted before somebody's able to operate, from a safety and from an environmental and from a noise thing. So I'm one to say, in the last couple of years we've been dealing with this issue. We need to get it, if we're going to allow somebody like this to operate, we need to make sure they're doing it within what we've promised as commissioners to the public, that we're saying we're going to allow these people to do this, but they're also going to meet their obligation. And we're not able to do that today.
That's correct.
Got one more question, process question. So if and when they submit a new application, what's the notice requirement if it's a modification? Do you notice the same people you noticed in the original?
Correct. We'll notice the people within 1,500 feet.
Okay, so, and did anyone get a notice of this hearing today?
It's not a hearing today, so there was no notice provided.
Got
Just-
it, okay, because it's an action item, so that's
Correct.
why we don't see the room full of people that are all upset about this, okay.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Sounds like we're all
Mr.
saying
Chair.
the same thing. I don't know which fits it best. Did you have something to add?
Sorry, that we would also be notifying those who have been at the hearings in the past, not just the 1,500
Yes,
feet, but those
correct.
who also signed up.
Okay,
Well, whose turn is it to make a motion?
it is your turn.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we deny the appeal and accept the hearings officer decision affirming the revocation. And I'll make that motion, but with the understanding that the applicant can go back and do one of two things that Gloria just talked about.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to deny the appeal, accept the hearings officer's decision affirming the revocation. Any further discussion? I don't think I have any either. Pretty well laid it out. So, I don't hear any more. All in favor then say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes.
Thank
you all
you.
for your time and consideration. It's the last of our action items this morning. So now I'll read the places, times we'll be together in this coming week. 1:15 today, Wednesday the 31st, we have a federal issues update with our lobbyist Joel Rubin from CFM. That'll be in the Silver and Conference Room, 5th floor, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. And then at 2:30 this afternoon, Capital Community Television taping, CCTV office, Studio 1, 575 Trade Street Southeast in Salem. Oh, let's see, this somehow must be wrong. It says Wednesday, but of course it can't be. Should be Thursday, 8:30 to 9. On the 1st, East Salem Service District meeting, Silver and Conference Room, 5th floor, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. That's followed at 9:30. Main event for the year, fiscal year 2017-18 opening budget session here in this location here, Senator Hearing Room, 1st floor, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. That'll be followed by the first gathering meeting of Budget Committee, 2017-18 here in the Senator Hearing Room, Tuesday, the 6th, 10 o'clock to 11, a work session to review the third supplemental budget, Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, 555 Court Street, Salem. And at 3:30 that afternoon, Thursday the 6th, Mid-Valley Behavioral Care Network, Annual Budget Committee and Board of Directors at MVBCN Office, 2965 Ryan Drive, Southeast in Salem. Next Wednesday at 9 o'clock, our regular board meeting here in the Senator Hearing Room. That's followed by the monthly Woodburn Marion County meeting at Luis's Taqueria at noon to 1 o'clock in Woodburn, 523 Front Street, and that's it. All right. Anything else to come? I see, and I'm sorry I don't know this. We have CCTV taping, but I don't know the subject. Does anybody?
Fair,
Oh, the
Marion County Fair.
Okay.
Ooh,
Yeah,
it's
is that-
coming up.
Should I bring the turkey?
Bring the blueberries.
I
my
think,
hat?
I'm pretty sure it's the fair.
Is it today? Today's our taping, isn't it?
Yeah, today is the taping.
I forgot my FFA jacket and my cowboy
Let
hat.
me see.
Did you adopt that turkey last year? Oh, you didn't? No, no.
Bought him.
All right.
No, I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't. I let him go. He's roaming free somewhere.
I must have deleted it.
That picture is out there someplace.
I've
Me and
seen
the-
it
Me and the
still.
turkey.
It'll be back. Well, you mean, well, we could, no, never mind, it's too easy.
You couldn't tell the difference. Go ahead.
All right, anything else this morning?
No, I'm looking up to make sure that I know what we're doing today, that I didn't misspeak, but,
I
Joe-
think it is, that's the one thing I heard him talk about. And that should be fun.
don't, hold on just for me.
All right.
I'll find it.
All right, with that, we'll call this meeting adjourned.